In a world obsessed with quick answers and instant solutions, true creativity has become rare. We scroll, we copy, we repeat. But how often do we actually think? How often do we dare to imagine differently, to question deeply, to break the mental patterns that limit us? Real creative thinking isn't about talent. It's about a mindset, a way of seeing, a discipline of thought. And the Stoics understood this long before modern psychology caught up. They taught us that wisdom begins not with knowing more, but with seeing more clearly, that the best ideas don't come from the rush to solve, but from the patience to understand. If you've ever felt stuck in your thinking, if you've ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly innovate while others get trapped in loops of repetition, today's episode is for you. We're going to explore Stoic lessons that will train your mind to think more creatively, more deeply, and more independently, not just for your own growth, but to better serve the world around you. Because in the end, creative thinking is not about self-expression alone. It's about contribution, about building a freer, wiser, more thoughtful society. And that journey starts within. 1. True wisdom is in judging, not just solving. Have you noticed how often we rush to fix things? The moment a problem appears, whether in life, work, or relationships, we immediately search for a solution. We throw ideas at it, patch it up, move on. But here's a deeper question. Did we truly understand the problem? Or were we simply reacting out of habit, discomfort, or ego? The Stoics remind us, wisdom is not the speed of our solutions, but the quality of our judgment. In modern life, where algorithms drive so much of our experience, from search engines to social media, it's tempting to become passive responders. Information flows so quickly that we forget to pause. But as the Stoics would argue, thoughtfulness is now one of the highest virtues. When you encounter a challenge, the first task is not to act. It is to judge, to discern, to ask, what exactly is this? Why does it trouble me? Is it even worth solving? Marcus Aurelius would reflect daily on the nature of things. Before reacting, he sought to strip away false appearances, to see things as they truly are. He practiced what we might call cognitive minimalism, removing assumptions, emotions, and projections so that his mind could operate on clear perception, not on noise. This is creative thinking at its core, because when you see more clearly, you can think more originally. Solutions arise not from cleverness, but from clarity. Consider this. In business, it's easy to chase trends. In relationships, it's easy to offer advice. In personal growth, it's easy to jump from tactic to tactic, but without first asking the deeper questions. What is the true nature of this problem? What are its causes? What is the right principle to guide my response? We risk wasting effort on shallow answers. The creative mind must resist this. It must develop the courage to sit with ambiguity, to explore before concluding, to understand before acting. Now think about how this principle changes your day. You receive an upsetting email. Do you fire back a reply? Or do you pause and ask, what is really happening here? You feel stuck in a project. Do you force yourself to push harder? Or do you step back and ask, am I solving the wrong problem? You hear a popular opinion. Do you adopt it? Or do you examine it and decide for yourself? This habit of judgment, of stepping back, questioning, clarifying, is the foundation of creative thought. Because when you refuse to think mechanically, you begin to think originally. You free your mind from the reactive loop. And in doing so, you create space for insight. So remember, the Stoic thinker does not rush to solve. He first strives to understand. He knows that wisdom is not in the speed of answers, but in the depth of questions. And in a noisy, impatient world, this quality will make your thinking not only more creative, but more valuable. Ask yourself today, where in my life am I rushing to solve, instead of learning to see? 2. Don't seek the familiar. Embrace the unknown. Why do so many people, even intelligent ones, think in the same patterns year after year? It's simple. The mind loves the familiar. We are wired for comfort, not just physically but mentally. Familiar thoughts, familiar routines, familiar opinions. They feel safe. But here's the paradox. The more you stay in the known, the less creative you become. The Stoics understood this deeply. Growth comes from challenge, strength comes from resistance, and the mind, like the body, must be exercised beyond its comfort zone to evolve. A Stoic thinker does not cling to what he knows. He steps into what he does not know. He embraces uncertainty, ambiguity, even discomfort, because he understands that new ideas do not emerge from old patterns. They emerge from new experiences, new perspectives, new struggles. Seneca once wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The same is true of thinking. It is not because new ideas are beyond us that we do not find them. It is because we do not seek them. We remain trapped in familiar ways of thinking, consuming the same kinds of information, speaking to the same kinds of people, solving the same kinds of problems. And then we wonder why our creativity feels stagnant. But imagine approaching life like a Stoic explorer. What if, instead of staying in your mental routines, you deliberately sought out the unknown? Read a book outside your field. Travel to a place that challenges your assumptions. Have conversations with people who see the world differently. Experiment with a new creative practice, not because you will succeed right away, but because in the friction of newness, the mind grows. The Stoics saw discomfort not as an obstacle, but as a teacher. Creative thinkers must adopt the same mindset. When you feel uncertain, when you feel out of depth, that is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that your mind is stretching. And just like lifting weights builds muscle, embracing the unknown builds cognitive strength. Ask yourself, how often do you truly expose your mind to new ideas? How often do you step into intellectual discomfort? If your days are filled only with what you already know, your thinking will remain predictable. But if you cultivate the habit of seeking the unknown, you will surprise yourself. New connections will form, new insights will arise, and gradually your creativity will deepen. In this way, creative thinking becomes not an occasional event, but a way of life, a constant dance between the familiar and the unknown, between what you have mastered and what you are still willing to learn. The Stoic thinker welcomes this dance, not because it is easy, but because it is the only path to true growth. So I leave you with this reflection. Where have I grown too comfortable in my thinking, and where might I embrace the unknown today? 3. The matchstick pyramid. Truth is not always flat. Picture this. On a table lies a flat surface, and on it a small puzzle, a few matchsticks arranged in a square. You're asked, how do you turn this into a three-dimensional pyramid using only these same sticks? Many people stare and rearrange them endlessly on the table, left, right, diagonally. But the answer doesn't lie in the plane they're staring at. The moment someone dares to lift the sticks off the surface and think in 3 dimensions, the solution emerges. The problem was never flat. The mind was. This is a powerful metaphor for creative thinking. So often we become trapped not by the problem itself, but by the frame in which we view it. The Stoic mind questions the frame. It asks, am I seeing this whole? Is my perception limited? What dimension am I missing? In philosophy and in life, this habit separates shallow thought from profound insight. Epictetus taught that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but the views we take of them. In other words, our mental frame determines what we see and what we miss. The lazy thinker accepts the default frame. The Stoic thinker does not. He challenges assumptions, tests perspectives, and lifts his thinking beyond the obvious plane. This is where creativity begins. In modern life, think about how often this mental flattening occurs. A business problem is approached with the same old metrics. A personal conflict is judged by habitual emotional reactions. A creative project is shaped by the same genre conventions. In each case, the thinker is stuck rearranging matchsticks on a flat surface, unaware that the answer may lie beyond it. But how do you cultivate the ability to see beyond the flat frame? First, by slowing down. When you encounter a challenge, don't leap to solutions. Pause and reflect on how you're perceiving it. What assumptions are you carrying? What alternative perspectives might exist? Is there a higher-order view you're missing? Second, expose yourself to diverse modes of thinking. Read philosophy if you're a scientist. Study art if you're an engineer. Learn about history if you work in technology. The more cognitive dimensions you develop, the more likely you are to spot new angles when faced with complex problems. And third, practice humility. The Stoic knows that no single view is complete. Every perspective is partial, every frame limited. Creative thinking is not about arrogance, it's about openness. The willingness to admit, perhaps I'm not seeing this whole. Perhaps there is another level I must explore. When you adopt this mindset, even ordinary situations begin to reveal hidden layers. A conversation becomes an opportunity to hear what is unsaid. A routine task becomes a chance to redesign the process. A setback becomes an invitation to question deeper patterns. You begin to think in dimensions, not in lines. So ask yourself today, where am I thinking too flat? What dimensions of thought might I be missing? And how can I train my mind to lift beyond the surface? 4. Repetition is not mastery, it is a cage. We live in a world that worships productivity. Do more, repeat faster, optimize. But here's the danger. Repetition without reflection becomes stagnation. The Stoic philosopher Seneca warned of this long ago. He spoke of the soul's decay in comfortable habits. And the same holds true for the intellect. When the mind is trained only to repeat, whether facts, methods, or routines, it forgets how to create. And when we forget how to create, we forget how to live. Think about it. How many people do you know who perform their jobs on autopilot, who speak in cliches, who think only in the frameworks handed to them by others? They have perfected repetition, but at the cost of originality. They have become efficient, but not creative. And deep down, they feel it. A dullness sets in, a restlessness. The mind yearns for novelty, for challenge, for the spark of invention, but it has been caged by comfort. This is why the Stoic path values not mere discipline, but conscious discipline. There is a crucial difference between practicing something mindfully, where each repetition brings new awareness, and repeating mindlessly, where each cycle erodes curiosity. The creative thinker must guard against the latter. Seneca wrote, "The man who is everywhere is nowhere. Likewise, the mind that repeats everything learns nothing new. To grow, one must move from mechanical repetition to deliberate variation. In other words, you must make space for play within practice, for questioning within learning, for exploration within structure. Consider this in your own life. If you are learning a skill, are you merely repeating drills, or are you experimenting with new variations? If you are managing a project, are you following the same old process, or are you questioning how it could be improved? If you are thinking about a problem, are you circling the same thoughts, or are you daring to think differently? The Stoics embraced this dynamic approach. They reflected daily not to repeat what they knew, but to challenge themselves anew. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Meditations not as a manual of rote answers, but as a living dialogue with his own mind." Each day he asked, "Where am I growing? Where am I stagnating? What new insight can I cultivate?" This is the creative way, because true mastery is not about perfect repetition, it is about adaptive learning. It is about keeping the mind alive, curious, flexible, even in familiar domains. The moment you stop questioning, you start decaying. The moment you cling to comfort, you lose the edge of creation. So ask yourself, where in my life have I traded growth for repetition? What habits once served me, but now cage me? And how can I reawaken curiosity in my practice? Remember, the Stoic thinker does not settle for efficient routine. He seeks living mastery, the kind that evolves, deepens, and creates anew. This is the path to both wisdom and vitality. 5. Structure is power. When used with virtue, structure can be a double-edged sword. It can either liberate you or enslave you, and the difference lies in intention. Many people misunderstand discipline. They see it as a rigid cage, a harsh set of rules that stifle freedom. But the Stoics teach us something deeper. Structure, when aligned with virtue, is not limitation. It is power. It is a framework that supports your highest growth, not one that suffocates it. Think of the Stoic practice of daily reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, not because he was forced to, but because it kept his mind aligned with truth. Epictetus urged students to rehearse their principles daily, not as mindless routine, but as a way to keep philosophy alive in their actions. In both cases, structure served a purpose: to cultivate wisdom, resilience, and clarity. Now contrast this with modern life. Many people build structures around efficiency alone. Calendars packed with meetings, rigid to-do lists, self-improvement routines that become performative. But ask yourself, is this structure serving growth, or is it simply keeping you busy? The creative thinker must be especially vigilant here. Creativity needs form, yes, but it also needs space. Too much rigidity, and the mind becomes brittle. Too little, and it drifts aimlessly. The Stoic approach is balance. Enough structure to anchor intention, enough freedom to foster innovation. Consider your daily life. Do your habits reflect your highest values? Is your schedule designed to help you think deeply, to create meaningfully, to connect authentically? Or are you trapped in structures you've outgrown, systems that once served you but now limit you? Seneca warned, "No man is free who is a slave to his body." We can extend this. No mind is free that is a slave to its own routines. Discipline should be conscious. Every structure in your life should answer this question. Does this make me more aligned with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? If not, it must be re-examined. Creative thinkers thrive when they build intentional structures. This could mean setting aside protected time for deep work, designing rituals that stimulate reflection, limiting distractions not to impose austerity, but to reclaim focus. The key is purpose. Structure must serve the mind, not the other way around. And here lies the Stoic insight. Structure is most powerful when it is chosen, not imposed. When it is revisited often, refined deliberately, and connected to virtue. A rigid life breeds mediocrity. A conscious structure breeds mastery. So reflect today. What structures in my life elevate me? What structures confine me? And how can I realign my discipline with my highest values? Remember, in the Stoic way, freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the presence of the right structure. And when that alignment is achieved, both life and thought become far more creative. 6. The best systems are those where everyone grows. In a world obsessed with competition, it's easy to forget this simple truth. Systems should serve people, not the other way around. The Stoics held justice as one of the highest virtues. And true justice is not found in winning alone, but in creating conditions where all can rise. A creative thinker understands this deeply. If your work, your ideas, your leadership, or your systems elevate only yourself while diminishing others, you are not building a sustainable legacy. You are feeding ego. Think about education, for example. Too many educational systems focus on grades, rankings, and output, not on growth, not on wisdom. But what is the true purpose of learning? It is to cultivate autonomy, resilience, and creativity in both student and teacher. A wise system is one where everyone evolves through the process. The student gains knowledge and confidence. The teacher deepens understanding through the act of teaching. Both walk away enriched. The same applies in organizations. Too many corporate systems extract value from employees without fostering their development. The Stoic leader rejects this model. He asks, does my system help others grow? Does it foster purpose, meaning, and virtue? If not, it must be changed. Because a system that degrades its people will eventually collapse, in morale, in creativity, and in ethical standing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee. A wise society, a wise company, a wise community, these are systems designed for mutual flourishing. Not zero-sum games, but ecosystems of growth." In such systems, creativity thrives because trust exists. People are not afraid to experiment, to speak honestly, to challenge ideas, because they know the goal is shared advancement, not individual dominance. For the creative thinker, this perspective is crucial. If you want your ideas to matter, they must serve more than your ego. They must contribute to systems that elevate others. Whether you are designing a product, leading a team, creating art, or teaching, the real question is, am I building something that helps others become stronger, wiser, freer? Even in personal life, this matters. Friendships, partnerships, collaborations, they flourish when both parties grow. If a relationship stifles one person while serving the other, it breeds resentment, not harmony. The Stoic approach is to seek win-win structures, not for naive idealism, but for long-term strength. And here's the creative insight. When everyone grows, the system becomes more resilient, more innovative, more alive. The best ideas emerge when minds feel safe, supported, and stretched. Oppressive environments kill creativity. Empowering environments ignite it. So reflect. What systems am I part of? How do they affect my growth? How do they affect the growth of others? And how can I contribute to making them more just, more generative, more aligned with virtue? In this way, the Stoic thinker does not create for applause. He creates for contribution. He does not lead for control. He leads for elevation. And in doing so, he helps build a world where creativity and wisdom can truly flourish. 7. Know people deeply, or you cannot serve them well. It's easy to create in abstraction, to sit behind a screen, to draft ideas, to build products, to write words, all without truly knowing the people you aim to serve. But Stoic wisdom reminds us, real value is born of understanding. Marcus Aurelius said, "Enter into each man's soul." Why? Because without empathy, without genuine comprehension of human experience, creativity becomes empty. Clever, perhaps, but disconnected. In today's fast-paced world, where data points replace conversations and trends replace human stories, this lesson is more relevant than ever. A creative thinker must resist the temptation to create for metrics alone. Yes, algorithms may tell you what is popular. Yes, market research may reveal patterns. But behind every click, every view, every customer, every audience member, there is a human being with hopes, fears, struggles, and dreams. If you do not see them, you cannot serve them. Think of a physician who prescribes before listening, a teacher who lectures without knowing their students' challenges, a designer who creates for aesthetic trends but ignores usability. In each case, the result may look polished, but it will lack soul because it lacks connection. The Stoic creator aims higher. He seeks to understand first. He listens before speaking. He observes before offering. This principle applies to all forms of creative work. If you are writing, are you truly attuned to your audience's inner world? If you are building a product, do you grasp the daily realities of the people who will use it? If you are leading a team, do you know what truly motivates and burdens them? Without this depth of understanding, your efforts risk becoming performative, surface-level gestures that fail to resonate. And here's the paradox. The more deeply you know others, the more original your creativity becomes. Because when you understand real human needs and experiences, you move beyond cliches and formulas. You start creating solutions, stories, and systems that touch what truly matters. You create not for applause, but for impact. This is why the Stoic thinker must cultivate empathy, not as sentimental indulgence, but as a disciplined practice of perception. To enter into each person's soul is to ask, what is it like to be them? What are their joys, their pains, their invisible struggles? Not to judge, but to understand. And from that understanding, to create with integrity. In leadership, this practice transforms culture. Leaders who know their people deeply build trust and loyalty. In teaching, it transforms learning. Educators who understand their students foster curiosity and courage. In art, it transforms expression. Creators who connect with the human condition produce work that moves hearts, not just minds. So ask yourself today, who am I trying to serve? Do I truly understand them? And how can I deepen that understanding, not through assumptions, but through genuine curiosity? Remember, creativity that serves without understanding is hollow. But creativity rooted in deep empathy becomes a force for healing, for connection, and for lasting value. This is the Stoic path, not to create for ego, but to create in service of others, grounded in the wisdom of knowing them well. 8. The goal of learning is not knowledge, but autonomy. In the age of endless information, it's easy to confuse learning with accumulation. More books, more podcasts, more courses. We devour knowledge like a consumer chasing the next product. But the Stoics taught us to aim for something far deeper, not to collect facts, but to cultivate autonomy. True learning is not about knowing more, it's about needing less. It's about forging a mind that can navigate life clearly, wisely, and independently, no matter the circumstances. Epictetus, who himself was born a slave, understood this intimately. He taught that real freedom comes not from external conditions, but from the mind's ability to govern itself. A person who relies on others for direction, validation, or decisions is not truly free, no matter how much knowledge they possess. But the one who has trained their mind to think clearly, to reason soundly, and to act in accordance with nature and virtue, the person carries freedom within them. Consider the modern dilemma. Many people are overwhelmed, not because they lack information, but because they are drowning in it. They know a little about many things, but they have no internal compass. They can quote experts, but they cannot make decisions without consulting yet another source. They mistake memorization for wisdom. The Stoic thinker must reject this model. Learning, in the Stoic sense, is a forging process. It's the deliberate crafting of a mind that can stand alone, a mind that can reflect, discern, and act with clarity, even when stripped of external support. The goal is not to become a walking encyclopedia, but to become a person of judgment, someone who can distinguish what matters from what is noise, someone who can rely on their reason, not because they know everything, but because they have disciplined their way of thinking. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles, confusion, uncertainty, these are not enemies to the Stoic learner. They are invitations to strengthen the mind's autonomy. Each challenge is a chance to deepen one's internal resources, to learn how to think, not just what to think. So how do you cultivate this kind of learning? First, by questioning what you consume. Ask yourself, is this helping me build a stronger, clearer mind? Or is it merely entertaining or distracting me? Second, by practicing reflection. After learning something new, don't just move on. Ask, how does this apply to my life? How does this change my understanding of the world? Third, by embracing discomfort. True learning often feels slow, frustrating, even painful, because it forces you to reshape your habits of thought, and most importantly, recognize that the goal is not perfection, but progress. Autonomy is not a destination, it's a practice. Every day you train your mind to stand more firmly on its own is a day closer to true freedom. Ask yourself today, am I learning in a way that makes me more autonomous, or am I just accumulating knowledge without wisdom? The Stoic thinker aims not for a mind that knows everything, but for a mind that needs nothing, a mind that can walk through the world with composure, clarity, and confidence, grounded not in the fleeting trends of the day, but in enduring reason. 9. Use tools, but never worship them. We live in an era of extraordinary tools: artificial intelligence, automation, data analytics. These instruments can amplify human potential in ways the ancient Stoics could scarcely imagine, and yet their wisdom still applies. Tools are to be mastered, not worshipped. The Stoic thinker knows this distinction well. He understands that a tool, no matter how advanced, must serve reason, not replace it. When we forget this, we become the servant, not the master. Consider modern creators. Many rely heavily on platforms: ChatGPT to write, Stack Overflow to code, software to design. There's nothing wrong with this. Tools can accelerate the creative process. But here's the danger: dependency. The more we lean on tools without understanding, the more our intellectual muscles atrophy. We become technicians of process, not creators of value. The Stoic would ask, am I using this tool to strengthen my thinking or to bypass it? Epictetus famously taught, "What is yours?" The use of impressions. In other words, external things, including tools, are not truly ours. What we own is how we perceive, reason, and respond. When a creator becomes dependent on a tool for their very thinking, they surrender this inner domain. They mistake borrowed capability for genuine wisdom. Think of the sword metaphor. A sword in the hand of a skilled warrior is a tool of precision, but a sword without mastery can harm its wielder. The same is true of modern tools. AI can sharpen your writing, or it can make your thinking derivative. Data can inform your strategy, or it can blind you with false certainty. The Stoic thinker stays vigilant. He uses tools, but never allows them to dull his judgment. How do you maintain this balance? First, by cultivating first principles thinking. Don't just use a tool, understand the problem it is solving. If the tool disappeared tomorrow, could you still think through the challenge? Could you still reason your way to a solution? If not, your autonomy is compromised. Second, by practicing deliberate discomfort. Occasionally create without your favorite tools. Write by hand. Solve a problem without Google. Teach a concept without slides. This kind of mental exercise keeps your cognitive muscles strong. It reminds you that the core of creativity lies in the mind, not in the instrument. Finally, by staying humble. No matter how advanced tools become, they remain extensions of human reason, not replacements for it. Wisdom is not in having the right tool, it is in knowing how to use it wisely. The Stoic mind is grounded in this understanding. It does not chase novelty for its own sake. It does not outsource its judgment. It remains centered, discerning, free. Ask yourself today, where am I using tools well, and where might I be letting them think for me? Am I sharpening my mind or dulling it in the pursuit of convenience? Remember, in a world enamored with technology, the rarest skill will be deep thinking. Tools will come and go, but the mind that knows how to use them and when to put them aside will remain a source of enduring creativity and wisdom. This is the Stoic way. 10. Creating value is the work of the virtuous citizen. We often hear that creativity is about self-expression, about making your mark on the world, but the Stoics offer a more profound perspective. True creativity is not about the self, it is about service. It is the work of the virtuous citizen, someone who contributes meaningfully to the fabric of society, not for applause, but for the common good. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." In other words, personal excellence must align with communal well-being. A Stoic creator asks not merely, "What do I want to make?" but "What does the world need? How can my work serve others?" In a time when so much creation is driven by vanity metrics, followers, likes, virality, this ethos is revolutionary. The creative thinker who operates from virtue does not chase trends. He does not create for fleeting fame. He builds with purpose. His work, whether public or private, aims to add value, to uplift, to educate, to heal, to inspire. Consider this in practical terms. A software engineer who writes clean, ethical code that protects users' privacy is practicing Stoic creativity. A teacher who crafts lessons that empower students to think critically is practicing Stoic creativity. An artist who challenges viewers to reflect on moral questions is practicing Stoic creativity. In each case, the work transcends ego. It becomes an act of citizenship, of building a world richer in wisdom and goodness. And this is not limited to grand gestures. Even small acts of creation, writing an insightful comment, designing a thoughtful interface, cooking a nourishing meal, can embody this ethos if done with intention and care. The Stoic principle is simple. Every action, no matter how humble, is an opportunity to practice virtue. But this requires constant vigilance. It is easy to be seduced by external rewards, to begin with noble aims and slowly drift into seeking recognition. The Stoic guards against this by returning daily to reflection. Why am I creating? For whom? And to what end? If the answer is aligned with virtue, justice, wisdom, courage, temperance, the path remains true. If not, correction is needed. Moreover, this mindset transforms the experience of creativity itself. When your goal is contribution, not validation, you free yourself from the tyranny of public opinion. You create not to impress, but to serve. You measure success not in numbers, but in impact. In the quiet ways your work improves lives, even if unseen. Ask yourself today, is my creative work aligned with virtue? Am I building for fame, or for function, for applause, or for contribution? Remember, the world has no shortage of noise. What it needs is meaning. What it craves is thoughtful, principled creation. The Stoic thinker answers this call, not by retreating from the world, but by engaging with it as a virtuous citizen, crafting value one deliberate act at a time. 11. Experience is the soil where wisdom grows. Many people wait. They wait until they feel ready, until they have read one more book, taken one more course, heard one more podcast. They convince themselves that once they know enough, then they will act. But the Stoics would shake their heads at this. Life itself is the curriculum. You do not grow wise by thinking in circles. You grow wise by living deliberately, by stepping into the world, by engaging with reality, by allowing experience to refine your mind and character. Seneca put it plainly, while we teach, we learn. In other words, it is through action, through trial, reflection, and adaptation that true understanding takes root. Theoretical knowledge has its place, but without experience, it remains shallow. A person who endlessly consumes information but avoids life's challenges is like a farmer who collects seeds but never plants them. Wisdom requires soil. It requires the friction of real-world experience. Consider this. Many of the most creative and wise thinkers were forged not in ivory towers, but in the grit of life. Epictetus taught philosophy to others after enduring slavery. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations while leading an empire through war and plague. Their wisdom was not abstract. It was embodied. It was tested in the furnace of experience. For the creative thinker, this lesson is essential. You will never feel fully prepared. You will never know everything you think you need to know. The path to mastery is not paved with certainty, but with courage. You must act, reflect, and refine again and again. Each attempt, each failure, each success adds a new layer to your understanding. And here's the paradox. The more you engage with life, the more creative your thinking becomes, because real experiences provide raw material for insight. They expose you to complexity, nuance, contradiction, the very things that stretch your mind beyond simplistic thinking. A Stoic embraces this process. He does not fear mistakes, because he sees them as teachers. He does not wait for perfect conditions, because he knows they will never come. Instead, he steps forward with humility, with curiosity, with resolve. He lives as a student of life, knowing that wisdom is earned through doing. Think of your own life. Where are you hesitating, waiting to feel ready? What opportunities for growth are you postponing because you believe you need more preparation? The Stoic answer is clear. Begin. Engage. Life itself will teach you what you need to learn if you have the courage to participate fully. Ask yourself today, where am I holding back? How can I step more deliberately into experience, not recklessly, but with purpose and reflection? Remember, wisdom is not a possession, it is a practice, and the richest soil for its growth is not in endless contemplation, but in the living, breathing complexity of the world around you. This is where the Stoic thinker finds his greatest lessons, not in theory alone, but in life lived fully. 12. To help the world walk among its wounds. It's tempting, especially for thinkers and creators, to retreat, to build a life of comfort and distance, to read, to write, to reflect, from the safety of solitude. And while solitude has its place, the Stoics teach us a harder truth. If you truly wish to help the world, you must walk among its wounds. Philosophy is not meant to be an escape. It is meant to be a guide, and a guide must be present where the need is greatest. Consider Epictetus. Though he taught philosophy, he did not hide in the company of the privileged. He spoke to slaves, to the poor, to those whose lives were marked by hardship. Why? Because wisdom divorced from human struggle is sterile. It cannot serve those who suffer if it has never been tested in the fires of suffering. Marcus Aurelius too understood this. He did not write his meditations from a palace alone. Many of his reflections were penned while on military campaigns amid the chaos of war. He governed not from ivory towers, but from the harsh realities of leadership in uncertain times. For him, philosophy was not an abstract exercise. It was a compass for navigating real life with all its messiness and pain. For the modern creative thinker, this lesson is vital. If your goal is to create work that matters, that heals, that uplifts, you must engage with the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. You must listen to those who are unheard. You must witness suffering with open eyes, not turn away. Only then can your insights carry the weight of authenticity. Only then can your work resonate beyond superficiality. This does not mean you must suffer endlessly or sacrifice your well-being. It means cultivating the courage to face life honestly, to walk in the parks, in the streets, in the spaces where real people wrestle with real problems, to observe, to converse, to learn, and from that deep well of human experience, to create with compassion and integrity. Think about your own creative work. How often do you venture beyond your comfort zone to understand those you wish to serve? How often do you immerse yourself in environments that challenge your assumptions, that expand your empathy? The Stoic thinker understands that true service is grounded in presence. It is not enough to theorize solutions from a distance. You must be there, in the schools where children struggle, in the communities where injustice festers, in the quiet corners where loneliness lingers. Only by witnessing the wounds of the world can you hope to contribute to its healing. And here's the deeper truth. This practice transforms not only your work, but your soul. When you walk among the wounded with humility, you develop compassion. When you engage with hardship, you cultivate resilience. Your creativity gains depth. Your wisdom gains humanity. Ask yourself today, where am I too distant from the realities I wish to address? How can I step closer, not to judge, but to understand, to serve, to learn? Remember, the Stoic path is not a path of withdrawal. It is a path of courageous engagement. And for the creative thinker, this is the highest calling, to bring thought, art, and action into the heart of the world's wounds, and to contribute, however humbly, to their healing. 13. The highest success is inner stillness and clear thought. In a noisy world, many chase external symbols of success: gold, titles, followers, fame. But the Stoic knows these are shadows, not substance. The highest success is not what the world sees, it is what the soul holds. It is inner stillness, it is clear thought. A mind unshaken by praise or blame, a heart undisturbed by chaos. A person who, no matter the storm outside, remains anchored in wisdom and virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Why does this matter for the creative thinker? Because true creativity requires clarity. If your mind is cluttered with vanity, with ego, with anxiety about outcomes, you cannot think deeply, you cannot see clearly. Your work will reflect this restlessness. But when you cultivate inner stillness, your thinking sharpens, your perception deepens. You begin to create not from a place of scarcity or craving, but from abundance, from a calm confidence in your own voice and vision. This is not easy. The modern world constantly pulls us outward, into comparison, into distraction, into the endless chase for validation. But the Stoic trains to return inward, to practice moments of silence, to reflect daily, to clear the mind of what does not serve wisdom. This is not escapism, it is preparation. A clear mind is the strongest foundation for meaningful action. Consider this: in any field, art, science, leadership, the most impactful creators are not those who shout the loudest, but those who think the clearest. Their work resonates because it is grounded, intentional, free of noise. They do not seek to impress, they seek to express truth. And because of this, they build a freer world, one where others are invited to pause, to reflect, to think for themselves. As a creative thinker, this is your highest contribution, not just to produce, but to cultivate a quality of thought that inspires others to do the same. To teach, through your work and presence, the value of pausing before reacting, of thinking before speaking, of effort over ease. In a culture addicted to speed, the one who embodies stillness becomes a beacon. And here's the beauty: this success is untouchable. It does not depend on market trends or public opinion. It cannot be taken by circumstance or time. It is yours, forged in the quiet discipline of your own mind. Ask yourself today, am I chasing success that the world can see, or cultivating success that the soul can feel? How can I nurture more stillness, more clarity in my thinking, not tomorrow, but today? Remember, in the Stoic way, success is not a destination. It is a quality of being, a life of inner composure and clear thought. And from this wellspring, the most creative, the most meaningful contributions arise. Throughout this journey, you've seen that creative thinking is not some mystical gift reserved for a few. It is a discipline, a choice, a way of approaching life with courage, clarity, and care. The Stoics remind us, wisdom begins in perception, in how we choose to see, and from there it shapes how we choose to act, to create, to contribute. In a time when so many rush to produce more, to consume more, to achieve more, the creative Stoic moves differently. You pause before reacting. You seek to understand before solving. You embrace the unknown instead of clinging to the familiar. You refuse the cages of mindless repetition and empty structure. Instead, you build frameworks that serve growth, yours and others. You remember that tools are there to serve your thinking, not replace it. That true learning is about autonomy, not accumulation. That value is created not for applause, but for service. You step into life, not waiting for perfect readiness, but knowing that wisdom grows through experience. And you walk among the world's wounds, because the highest creativity is born from compassion and connection. And above all, you seek the one success that no one can give or take, a mind of inner stillness and thought of clear purpose. This is the soil where your deepest work will flourish. So, as you leave this reflection, I'll ask you, which of these lessons will you live today? Not in theory, in practice, in how you see, in how you think, in what you create. The world needs more thoughtful creators, more wise citizens, more minds who can cut through noise and offer meaning. Be one of them. Start now, in this moment, and trust. The path of the creative Stoic is one of endless depth, endless growth. Walk it with courage,